And a week goes by, and we have more news for you for what's happened from the 30th of January all the way to the 5th of February. This is VBC News, and your host, Wengo Pigus.
Welcome to the VBC News, international broadcast informing you the news across Eldham. I'm your host, Wengo Pigus, and we shall begin with our first main story. A situation rise the first day of the week as new Arebor defected to Otto's rebellion and has left a shy. It is claimed that it's no longer in a declining empire anymore. More to it is Phelan Lancaster.
And now, folks, it's time to say goodnight. We sincerely appreciate your patronage and hope we've succeeded in bringing you an enjoyable evening of entertainment. Please drive home carefully and come back again soon.
This is the message New Arebor gave to the Crownlands as it announced on the first start of the week its defection to Aristios. On the 31st of January, Daddy Grenchen vowed his loyalty to Otto Alea in hopes of a brighter and more prosperous future. On the maps, New Arebor is located here, near Peridon, the original capital of Aristios, but we'll come back to that later. The decision to join Aristios was not taken very lightly, as much thought was placed during this process. But in the end, more lands are ending up disputed, and more puzzled faces loom the world. Not even a day goes by, and more territory goes to Otto, as Tashkarishadan begins its integration with Aristios the next day, and has placed its capital in Akira Shalam. The tension only continues to grow, and concerns draw rapid on both sides. Phelan Lancaster, VBC News.
In other news around the world, the President of the United States of Arstein, Bo Jiden, has apologized to the public after spending the federal budget into his addiction to gambling. He states that from now on, his administration will be working on budget counting and spending. After leaving the podium and looking rather confused on who to shake hands with. Next, in Holy Araka, let's just move on. Now it has been a week since the announcement of the death of King Sebi Aurelian of Montrium. The funeral happened this weekend. More on it is Yuri Agavan.
The death of King Sebi was an announcement that made the nation mourn. The people of Montrium gathered to the town of Ironcrest, where the late king lays to rest his soul. His reign was important to the people and will be remembered for who he was. We had managed to gain an interview with a member of the Montrium government and the new king himself to reminisce their thoughts on their past king.
I quickly rushed into the palace, the royal palace. A maid had given me a note that Sebi left, saying that he was feeling unwell and he did not want to continue to reign. And he appointed me to be the new head of state. Now, as much as I really wanted to be the head of state one day, I did not want it this way, where Sebi would have to unfortunately pass away. So I am very sad at that. We very sadly have to see our ruler pass away, which is not hard for any nation whatsoever, since it does strike a big blow to morale within the nation. But we hope we would be able to grow from this and be able to prosper after this.
Sadly, Classic Cook couldn't attend an interview, but gave us his perspective. Sebi was an individual who stuck with his gut and implemented a future he wanted with an iron fist. Uncompromising, he united the southern lands of the continent and brought a degree of stability. Despite his attachments to certain imperialist powers, he made an impact, and for that, I respect. His passing is noteworthy, and he will not be forgotten. This is Yuri Ogven from VBC News.
Now the Saronian Unified Board has declared a public health emergency in Kurovia, as a type of fungus epidemic has spurred up. Reports say that it impacts children's brains more than adults and is very dangerous. The cause of the spread of the disease was due to poor refrigeration, as of only 3% of households have 24-hour accessibility to electricity. The symptoms are as follows: involuntary, often contradictory speech, uncontrollable bowel movement, sudden change in personality, disregard to personal safety, impaired decision-making skills. As of now, many humanitarian missions have taken place to help the people within Kurovia with salmon-based medicines, with people's thanks to the FFS for their efforts. Next, we have the elections within the USSE with a majority of 53% vote margin to Emma Brewtaker. More with it is Arbiter Lancaster, voiced by Phelan Lancaster.
Emma Brewtaker has been elected as the new leader of the Communist Party of the USSE, winning a good majority of the population's confidence in becoming the new General Secretary. We've managed to gain an interview with the new leader on audio to discuss what made her step up for the position and what she plans to do for the nation in future. So, what made you run for the position of General Secretary in the first place?
I believed that having looked at the candidates that were applying for the recent election, that I would be the best choice to carry the USSE further on its goal into the future.
You've also reopened the borders within the USSE. Could you elaborate on what made to that decision as well?
We decided to reopen the borders after the period of isolation because we had achieved all the internal quota goals that we had set for the isolation. Basically, after the external issues and pressure we had been facing, we wanted to make sure that internally the country was rebuilt and strong before we re-entered the world stage.
And with that being said, does this mean you have more plans for international trading plans with other nations?
Yes, we're already establishing an economic union with North Valresh. We're expanding our trade with Eleanor and Barbosa. And we're also starting to get into the international arms trade across Eldham. We're more than happy to trade with anybody who is friendly and or neutral with us.
See, and your future plans for the USSE, is there anything that you wish to discuss?
Generally speaking, the plans for the USSE are to continue our neutral stance in the Eldham political sphere, continue expanding our alliance network and making friends, and hopefully supporting some of our socialist brethren in Eldham and Rathnear, because unfortunately they seem to be struggling unlike us.
With their plans for being friendly towards other nations, we shall see what events may appear within the USSE. Phelan Lancaster, Arbiter Story, VBC News.
And that's all we have for tonight, folks. We hope you enjoyed this week's broadcast and hope to see you next time. Goodbye, good evening, and good night. See ya.